The desert stretched endlessly under a crimson sky, its sands rippling like waves frozen in time. Somewhere in this vast wilderness, countless generations believed, lay the echoes of one of the greatest stories ever told. The Exodus, the epic tale of an enslaved people's deliverance, of plagues that shook an empire, and of a sea that parted to make way for freedom. But what if this story, so deeply embedded in the faith of billions, hides more questions than answers? Could the plagues of Egypt, often seen as divine miracles, have a scientific explanation? Could the dramatic crossing of the Red Sea have been caused by natural phenomena rather than supernatural intervention? Or was the entire saga crafted as an allegory, its purpose more spiritual than historical? For centuries, scholars, believers, and skeptics alike have grappled with these questions. The Exodus is more than a story. It is a puzzle, a point where faith and history collide. Some see it as a testament to God's intervention in human affairs, a powerful reminder of divine justice and mercy. Others view it as a myth, a symbolic narrative meant to inspire rather than document. And then there are those who seek the middle ground, wondering if ancient events shaped by the lens of faith might still leave traces in the sands of time. The stakes are high. This isn't just about proving or disproving a story. It's about understanding how faith and science can coexist. If the Exodus happened, what does it tell us about the nature of miracles? If it didn't, why has it endured, shaping cultures and beliefs for millennia? These are the questions we'll explore. From the plagues that devastated Egypt to the mysteries of the Red Sea, from the archaeological evidence, or lack thereof, to the profound theological themes, we'll venture deep into the heart of one of history's greatest enigmas. Whether you approach it with faith, skepticism, or curiosity, the Exodus holds truths that transcend the question of its literal reality. It challenges us to think about liberation, divine justice, and the power of storytelling itself. So let us journey back to where it all began, to the shifting sands of history and the enduring power of a story that continues to shape the world. The story of the Exodus begins in the land of Egypt, a civilization of monumental power and staggering ambition. It was a land of towering pyramids and sprawling temples, where the Nile River gave life to the desert and the pharaohs claimed to be gods incarnate. Yet, according to the Bible, within this realm of splendor and dominance, an enslaved people toiled under the weight of oppression, the Israelites. Their cries for deliverance reached the heavens, and in response, God chose a reluctant shepherd named Moses to lead them to freedom. It's a story familiar to many: the burning bush, the 10 plagues that shattered Egypt's will, the dramatic crossing of the Red Sea, and the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness before reaching the Promised Land. For centuries, this tale has been a cornerstone of faith, a story of divine intervention and human perseverance. But while the spiritual significance of the Exodus is undeniable, its historical foundation is far less clear. No Egyptian records mention a mass exodus of enslaved peoples, let alone a series of catastrophic plagues that humbled a pharaoh. Archaeologists have searched the deserts and ruins for traces of a large population wandering for decades, but have found little direct evidence. Could an event as monumental as the Exodus have occurred without leaving any marks on history? Or might the story, as we know it, be a symbolic retelling of smaller, less dramatic events? Some scholars suggest that the Exodus story draws from various ancient traditions, blending historical events with theological themes. Egypt's history is filled with uprisings, migrations, and natural disasters, events that could have inspired the narrative. For example, Semitic populations were present in Egypt during the Late Bronze Age, and archaeological evidence from sites like Avaris hints at their presence. Could these communities have been the seeds of the Exodus story? Or is this evidence too fragmented, too circumstantial to confirm such a connection? On the other hand, proponents of the Exodus as a historical event argue that the lack of evidence does not disprove the story. The sands of the Sinai desert are harsh and unforgiving, capable of erasing all but the most enduring artifacts. Furthermore, ancient Egypt, with its carefully curated records, was unlikely to document its own defeats or humiliations. Could the Exodus have been deliberately omitted from history, leaving only the oral traditions of the Israelites as its legacy? The debate is as vast as the desert itself. Was the Exodus an actual event, shaped by the hands of time and memory? Or was it a spiritual allegory, a narrative crafted to teach timeless truths about liberation, faith, and divine justice? To unravel this mystery, we must journey deeper into the archaeological remains of Egypt, the timelines of history, and the very nature of miracles themselves. For centuries, the mystery of the Exodus has tantalized archaeologists, driving them to sift through the sands of Egypt and the Sinai Peninsula in search of answers. Could there be evidence of such a monumental event, A population of thousands, if not millions, fleeing bondage under the cover of divine intervention? If the Exodus truly occurred, surely it must have left some trace. And yet, the land has remained stubbornly silent. The first clues come from the ancient city of Avaris, a site in Egypt's eastern delta. Buried beneath the sands, archaeologists uncovered evidence of a Semitic population that thrived there during the Late Bronze Age. These people, distinct from the Egyptians in their customs and culture, might have been the ancestors of the Israelites. They lived in modest homes, farmed the land, and likely worked for the Egyptians in various capacities. Could these Semites have been the enslaved Israelites of the Bible? Complicating the narrative is the city of Pi-Ramesses, built by Pharaoh Ramesses II, a ruler often associated with the Exodus story. The Bible mentions the Israelites building store cities for Pharaoh, and Pi-Ramesses fits the description perfectly. But here lies a problem. Pi-Ramesses was constructed centuries after the time when some scholars believe the Exodus might have occurred. This discrepancy in timelines has led to heated debates. Was the story of the Exodus passed down and later tied to a more famous pharaoh? Or does this suggest that the story is more symbolic than historical? As for the wandering in the desert, the trail grows even colder. The Sinai Peninsula, where the Israelites are said to have wandered for 40 years, offers no definitive evidence of a massive, sustained population. Archaeologists have found no campsites, no tools, no remnants of the type of large-scale encampments described in the Bible. Could the absence of evidence be explained by the desert's harsh environment, eroding and burying what little the Israelites might have left behind? Or does this absence suggest that the scale of the story was exaggerated, transformed by centuries of oral tradition? Skeptics argue that the lack of physical evidence undermines the story's historicity. They point out that the Egyptians, meticulous record keepers, would likely have documented an event as catastrophic as the plagues or the loss of an enslaved workforce. Yet no such records exist, no mention of rivers of blood, devastating darkness, or the death of the firstborn. Instead, Egypt's annals remain silent, their focus on victories and glory rather than potential humiliation. But for believers, the absence of evidence does not mean the evidence of absence. They point to the oral traditions of the Israelites, passed down through generations, as a testament to something extraordinary. Perhaps the events of the Exodus were not recorded because they were too disruptive, too shameful for the Egyptians to immortalize in stone. Or perhaps they were never meant to be preserved in history's records, destined instead to live in the hearts of the faithful. As the debate rages on, one thing is clear: the story of the Exodus is more than an archaeological puzzle. It is a narrative that has endured for millennia, transcending the need for physical proof. Yet the search for answers continues, driven by the hope that somewhere, hidden in the sands or carved into the stones of history, lies a clue that will unlock the mystery of the Exodus. For those who doubt the miraculous, the plagues of Egypt present a tantalizing puzzle. How could an ancient text describe a series of calamities so vividly, and with such devastating precision? Rivers turning to blood, swarms of locusts darkening the skies, hail that fell with fire, and the mysterious death of Egypt's firstborn. These events, if they truly occurred, would have shaken the foundations of the mightiest empire of the ancient world. But were they divine acts of judgment, or could nature itself have conspired to bring Pharaoh to his knees? Some scientists propose that the plagues, far from supernatural, were the result of natural disasters, a cascade of events triggered by one catastrophic phenomenon. Their theories begin with the lifeblood of Egypt itself, the Nile. Imagine a time when the mighty river, instead of nurturing the land, turned deadly. Some suggest this river of blood was caused by a toxic bloom of red algae, choking the waters and killing the fish. The decaying aquatic life could have driven frogs seeking refuge onto land, leading to the bizarre overpopulation described in the Bible. And what of the lice and flies that followed? As the frogs died off, the land may have become a breeding ground for insects, their numbers exploding without natural predators. These swarms, teeming with disease, could have infected livestock and humans alike, giving rise to the boils and pestilence that struck Egypt. But then, there are the plagues that defy such neat explanations: the hail mingled with fire, the impenetrable darkness, and the death of the firstborn, each more mysterious than the last. Could a volcanic eruption, such as the one at Santorini around 1600 BCE, have sent ash clouds sweeping over Egypt, blotting out the sun and triggering chaotic weather patterns? Scientists speculate that such an eruption might explain the fiery hail and the darkness, lending a chilling plausibility to these ancient accounts. Still, there is one plague that resists even the most creative theories: the death of the firstborn. How could a natural disaster selectively target the eldest in every family? Some propose that contaminated grain, stored in low-lying areas, might have released toxic gases heavier than air, The eldest, often tasked with sleeping closest to the storage areas as protectors of the family's wealth, would have been the first to succumb. But even this idea seems to fall short of explaining the eerie precision of the event. For believers, these scientific theories offer not an alternative, but a complement to the miraculous. They ask, could these natural phenomena have been instruments of divine will, perfectly timed to accomplish God's purpose? After all, what are the odds that a volcanic eruption, an algae bloom, and a series of plagues would align so perfectly with Moses' warnings to Pharaoh? The tension between science and faith only deepens the mystery. If the plagues were purely natural, their timing and sequence are nothing short of extraordinary. If they were miraculous, the story becomes a vivid testament to the power of divine intervention. Either way, the plagues of Egypt leave us questioning the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural, the explained and the inexplicable. And so, we stand at the edge of a mystery. Were the plagues nature's wrath, divine justice, or both? Perhaps the truth lies not in choosing between science and faith, but in exploring how the two might coexist to illuminate the past. Imagine the scene. A terrified crowd stands on the edge of an endless sea, their escape blocked by surging waves as a relentless army closes in behind them. Chariots rumble, the cries of warriors pierce the air, and the people's faith begins to waver. In this moment of despair, a single figure steps forward. Moses raises his staff, and in one of the most dramatic moments in history, or myth, the sea parts, creating a path to freedom. For many, this event is the pinnacle of divine intervention, but for others, it raises a tantalizing question. Could nature, rather than the miraculous, have opened the waters? Scientists have long pondered this mystery, offering theories that attempt to ground the Red Sea crossing in natural phenomena. One of the most compelling explanations involves the wind setdown effect, a meteorological event in which strong, sustained winds push water aside, exposing land beneath. Modern simulations suggest that winds of 60 miles per hour, blowing for several hours, could create a temporary land bridge, allowing people to cross. Once the winds stop, the waters would rush back, engulfing anything, or anyone, still in their path. Could this explain the Bible's vivid account of Pharaoh's army being swallowed by the sea? But then, there's the question of geography. Was it truly the Red Sea, or could the Israelites have crossed a smaller body of water, such as the Reed Sea, a shallow lake or marshy area near the Nile Delta? Ancient Hebrew translations of the text are ambiguous, leading some to argue that the dramatic crossing might have been less about towering walls of water and more about navigating treacherous marshlands. Even so, the stakes would have been just as high for those fleeing for their lives, with the waters symbolizing both peril and salvation. For those who believe in the miraculous, these natural explanations miss the point. They argue that the timing alone, Moses raising his staff just as the waters parted, defies coincidence. Even if natural forces were at play, how could they have aligned so perfectly with the Israelites' desperate need for deliverance? It's here that science and faith collide, and perhaps even complement each other. What if the parting of the sea was both a natural phenomenon and an act of God, with nature itself bending to a divine will? Then there's the deeper symbolism of the event. The crossing of the sea is more than just an escape from Egypt. It is a rebirth, a passage from slavery to freedom, from despair to hope. Whether you see it as a literal miracle or a metaphorical one, its power lies in the way it resonates across cultures and beliefs. The image of a people stepping into the unknown, trusting in the unseen, is one that transcends time. Still, the Red Sea crossing leaves us with questions as vast as the waters themselves. Did the winds blow just right, carving a path through the sea? Or did an unseen hand guide the waves, defying the laws of nature to make the impossible possible? In this mystery lies the enduring power of the Exodus story, a narrative that continues to captivate, not because it demands belief, but because it dares us to wonder. The story of the Exodus does not end with the parting of the sea. Instead, it leads into a vast and desolate wilderness, a barren, unforgiving expanse where the Israelites were said to have wandered for 40 years. But here's where the story takes another puzzling turn. If this massive migration truly happened, why does the desert remain eerily silent? Where are the remnants of campsites, tools, or artifacts that should have been left behind by thousands of people living in the wilderness for decades? Archaeologists have scoured the Sinai Peninsula for decades, and the results are perplexing. Not a single shred of evidence has been found that definitively points to a large population wandering in this region at the time the Bible describes. No pottery shards, no burial sites, no signs of sustained settlement. How could an event of such magnitude leave no trace? Could it be that the wandering, like much of the Exodus story, was meant to be understood symbolically rather than literally? One theory suggests that the numbers in the biblical text may have been exaggerated through translation or interpretation. The Hebrew word eleph, often translated as thousand, can also mean clan or group. If this is the case, the Israelites may have numbered in the hundreds, not millions, a smaller group, much harder to detect in the archaeological record. Another theory posits that the 40 years of wandering might symbolize a generation, a period of spiritual transformation rather than an exact duration of time. Yet, the lack of evidence does not negate the power of the story. The wilderness, after all, is as much a place of the spirit as it is a physical location. It is here, in the desolation of the Sinai, that the Israelites were said to have received the laws that would define them as a nation, the 10 Commandments, etched in stone and delivered amidst thunder and fire. This is where they forged their identity, moving from a group of slaves to a people united under a divine covenant. Some scholars argue that the wilderness wanderings reflect a timeless human experience, the journey of transformation. The wilderness becomes a metaphor for the trials and challenges that strip away old identities, forcing individuals and entire communities to confront their weaknesses, their fears, and their faith. It is a place of testing where reliance on the divine takes precedence over reliance on the self. Still, there are tantalizing threads that suggest the wanderings might not be entirely fictional. Seasonal water sources in the Sinai could have sustained small groups, and ancient trade routes crossing the desert might have provided a lifeline for nomadic populations. Could the Israelites have followed these paths, blending into the broader tapestry of desert life? Or was their journey something else entirely? A story crafted to symbolize a people's resilience and their covenant with a higher power. Whether the wilderness is viewed as history or metaphor, its mystery endures. Did the Israelites roam the desert sands, guided by pillars of cloud and fire? Or does the story speak to a deeper, spiritual journey? Perhaps, as with much of the Exodus, the truth lies somewhere in between, a fusion of history, faith, and the timeless human need to find meaning in the unknown. The sands of the Sinai may have swallowed the physical traces of their journey, but the story remains a testament to the transformative power of the wilderness. For in the desolation of the desert, whether literal or symbolic, the seeds of a nation were sown. Faith and science often seem like opposing forces, caught in an eternal tug of war. One relies on the unseen, the other on what can be observed and measured. But the story of the Exodus challenges this divide, presenting a tale so extraordinary that it invites both believers and skeptics to the same table. Can the plagues, the Red Sea crossing, and the wilderness wanderings be understood through the lens of science without diminishing their spiritual significance? Or does attempting to explain them risk stripping away their divine power? For some, faith and science are not adversaries, but partners in understanding. Take the plagues, for example. Could the Nile turning to blood have been caused by an algae bloom? Could the darkness over Egypt have been the result of volcanic ash? These theories may seem to downplay the miraculous, but for many believers, they only deepen the mystery. After all, what are the chances that these natural disasters align so perfectly with Moses' warnings to Pharaoh? The timing itself, they argue, is a miracle. The Red Sea crossing raises similar questions. If the parting of the waters was caused by a natural phenomenon, like the wind setdown effect, does that make it any less remarkable? Could nature itself have been a tool of divine intervention, the winds guided by an unseen hand? Science may explain the how, but it leaves the why untouched, a space where faith continues to thrive. Yet, not everyone is convinced. Skeptics argue that these scientific theories are attempts to retrofit natural explanations onto an inherently symbolic story. They point to the lack of physical evidence, the inconsistencies in timelines, and the parallels between the Exodus and other ancient Near Eastern myths. For them, the story's power lies not in its historical accuracy, but in its ability to inspire. Whether or not the events happened as described, the Exodus endures as a metaphor for freedom, justice, and the triumph of the human spirit. But for those who hold the story as sacred truth, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Faith, they remind us, does not depend on the approval of science. It asks us to trust in what cannot be seen, to believe in a power that transcends human understanding. In this view, the Exodus is not just a story, it is a revelation, a testament to God's active presence in history. Perhaps the greatest intrigue of the Exodus lies in its ability to bridge these two worlds. Science, with its relentless pursuit of answers, brings us closer to understanding the mechanisms of the natural world. Faith, with its emphasis on mystery and meaning, reminds us of the limits of human knowledge. Together, they create a fuller picture, one that allows us to stand in awe of the story, without demanding that every question be answered. In the end, the Exodus controversy is not just about historical evidence or scientific plausibility. It is about the enduring human need to seek the truth, to understand our place in the universe, and to find meaning in the stories we tell. Whether you approach it with faith, skepticism, or curiosity, the Exodus remains a testament to the power of the unknown, a mystery that invites us to wonder, question, and believe. The story of the Exodus transcends the boundaries of history, myth, and theology. Whether seen as divine intervention, a natural phenomenon, or a symbolic journey, it continues to capture the imagination of millions. But what is it about this ancient tale that makes it endure? Why does it still challenge our understanding of freedom, faith, and the human condition? For the faithful, the Exodus is a testament to the unseen hand of God, a narrative where miracles defy nature and justice triumphs against impossible odds. The plagues, the parting sea, and the wilderness wanderings may lack physical proof, but their resonance lies in their ability to inspire trust in something greater than ourselves. Faith, after all, does not require evidence. It requires belief in the extraordinary. For skeptics, the story's value lies not in its literal truth, but in its universal themes. It is a tale of liberation from oppression, a timeless reminder that power is fleeting, and that the pursuit of justice often demands courage, sacrifice, and perseverance. Whether historical or symbolic, the Exodus reflects humanity's eternal struggle to overcome adversity and find meaning in the journey. But for those caught between faith and doubt, the Exodus offers something even more profound, the possibility that the natural and the divine are not separate but intertwined. Could science, with its ability to uncover the mechanisms of the physical world, also reveal the fingerprints of something greater? Could the plagues and the parting sea be both natural phenomena and divine moments of providence? Perhaps it is in this interplay between the seen and the unseen that the true power of the Exodus lies. As we leave behind the sands of the Sinai and the waters of the Red Sea, one question remains. Does the lack of definitive evidence diminish the story's significance, or does it amplify its mystery? Perhaps the answer doesn't lie in resolving the tension between history and faith, but in embracing it. For in this tension, this space between what we can prove and what we choose to believe, the Exodus continues to live, not as a relic of the past, but as a living, breathing narrative that speaks to us today. If this journey has challenged your beliefs, sparked your curiosity, or deepened your wonder, share it with others who may feel the same pull toward the mysteries of the ancient world. What do you think? Were the plagues, the crossing of the sea, and the wilderness wanderings acts of divine intervention, natural coincidence, or something in between? Let's continue the conversation, exploring not only the mysteries of the Exodus, but the enduring power of stories to shape how we see the world and our place within it.